Hello, I'm in the kitchen just making some lunch, a little green pizza, some pesto with cheese. So I put something on my stories the other day that I feel like is hard for a lot of people to believe. And it has to do with your emotions, even the emotions you're not aware of, epigenetically regulating which gene your body's using. So here's a really good example. I have, migraines. I get them fairly often. I haven't gotten one in a while, knock on wood, but or some wood. I get them from my dad. My dad has migraines as well. He also hasn't gotten one in a while, interestingly, but that's not the point. The point is, my mom gets migraines, but it's not really the same kind. Like hers don't seem to be necessarily like a genetic thing. And I've always just identified that as like something that I've gotten from my dad. Like my dad gets migraines, I get migraines. My brothers don't get them, but I do. And interestingly enough, like genetically speaking, I look like, just a split down the middle combination of my mom and dad. Whereas I feel like my brothers look both a little bit more like my mom's side of the family. Well, if you don't know, you get one copy of every gene from your mom's side and then the other copy from your dad's side. You get 2 copies of every gene. And the thing that I said on my stories that I think is hard for a lot of people to believe is that you are using the copy of the gene that came from the parent that you have less emotional stickiness with or less emotional trauma with, which I think is a little bit nebulous for people like me who would say, oh, I grew up with a great family. I grew up in a loving home. I had a great childhood. But what we perceive in retrospect is not necessarily the same as like how we felt as children with our limited perception and our developmentally vulnerable subconsciouses and nervous systems. And also, this goes as well for the trauma that you inherit through your father or through your mother's side of the family. So let's say, your parents did a great job raising you, but their parents struggled in this way or that way. And then they had to live through that in their childhood. You also inherit that. Not 100% of it though. You inherit parts of it through the DNA that they hand down to you because neither of them hand down 100% of their DNA to you. You get 50% from your dad and 50% from your mom. So yeah, if we were going to quantify it and put a number to it, you would get 50% of your trauma from your dad's DNA and his lineage and his experiences and his parents' experiences and their parents' experiences, and then the same thing on your mother's side. The reason I brought this up, and I won't even go as far as to tell you that you can change your DNA, not epigenetics. You can change your actual DNA through light as well as through magnetism, which is true. It's been proven in studies. I won't even go there today. Let's just talk about epigenetics. Let's just talk about the genes you were dealt and how it correlates to the emotional trauma that you were dealt, and how the father's lineage of trauma differs from the mother's lineage of trauma in terms of the problems you're facing right now. Because you can affect your epigenetic regulation, depending on what you're doing, sometimes sort of instantly, like flipping a switch. If it's more diet and lifestyle, we're talking about maybe 6 months is what it's going to take. But through mirror magic, you can kind of do this by flipping a switch. So the lineage from your father, like the DNA that's passed down from your father, that trauma that's passed down through his DNA to you, is going to be more related to providership and your identity. You actually get your identity or your concept of self from your father. And I'm speaking to women, by the way, not speaking to men, because this is more so like opposite gender parent, okay? So like as a woman, you get this sense of identity from your dad, and you get your sense of self-worth from your dad. This is like who you're looking to basically subconsciously form these self-beliefs, mostly through the kind of attention that they show you and the amount of attention, the quality of attention, and what behaviors you're doing that triggers attention from them, basically. So for women, actually, providing for themselves and from their family is more related to their own identity and who they believe that they are, and their ability to show up in the world as that person, as who they really are. Because as women, we make money through relationships and from being seen. We can't really, sit behind a logo the way that men can. Like you actually have to, if you want to do things in compatibility with your own biology and not get burnt out and not have your oxytocin receptors disappear so that you're only dependent on dopamine and fiending for a little treat all the time and having your little sensitivities and your tummy issues. If you want to do things the right way, women build relationships through their own identity. So issues with being able to show up as yourself in your own identity and provide for yourself through that, those are going to come from your dad's lineage. Things that come from your mother's lineage have more to do with your interpersonal, like romantic relationships. And this also all fits together because your parents' attachment style, their respective attachment styles will shape your own attachment style. So your mom didn't end up with your dad completely by chance in terms of personality, right? So if you're with a quiet, disorganized, as it's now being called by Adam Lane Smith. If you're more of the quiet, disorganized, the old version of this is fearful, avoidant, and you tend to attract the louder, disorganized, or even bipolar or narcissist types of men. Those are the loud, disorganized, but still considered fearful avoidance. It's likely that your parents also had that dynamic going on. You learned that from somewhere. So the trauma that you have in relationships not only has to do with your attachment style that was modeled and passed down and conditioned into you as a child, but also the trauma from your mother's lineage. So the patterns that you are magnetized towards by accident, even in your love life. These things are patterns that not necessarily even your mother, but your mother's lineage has experienced, emotions that your mother's lineage has experienced. And a lot of this has to do with emotions that are stored in the kidneys, like fear. In terms of your dad's side of the family, if you are having, let's say, relationship issues are not what you're, dealing with right now. Let's say you're dealing with your ability to show up as who you are and be a provider by, being yourself as a woman. Again, this doesn't apply directly to men the way that I'm stating it. This is going to be emotions that are more so related to the heart. If you have a family history of heart disease, this is a pretty good sign that this is what you're dealing with. If you have your own, heart issues like, vascular connective tissue disorders or POTS, things that are vascular in nature, these things are going to point more towards this is something that you need to heal. You need to heal the trauma that's been passed down from your father's lineage. So you can actually figure this out. You can actually figure out which one you need to focus on right now, because you have 50% of trauma from your dad's side and 50% of trauma from your mom's side. But if you feel held back or limited in some area of life, then it's going to correlate with whatever genes your body has epigenetically selected to use. And you can epigenetically select the other gene, the gene from the other parent, basically. And again, you can do this instantly through Mirror Magic. You can do this gradually through other processes. There are a lot of ways to, find and process emotional trauma, and even just nervous system regulation is going to help you over time with these types of things. But if you have difficulty identifying which one you need to work on, the father's lineage or the mother's lineage, I'm going to show you what I showed you in my stories the other day. So this is called the priority mudra. You take your thumb and your middle finger, and I'm trying to get my hair out of the way. You put them on either side of your sternum. So like kind of up here, let's do this. You put them on either side of your sternum. Okay, so you're going to first think about healing your father's lineage within you. So healing my father's lineage, I get a forward sway. Now let's think about healing the mother's lineage through you. Okay, so I get a backward sway. The forward sway with the priority on means that is the priority, that you need to heal the more masculine side of things. And just as a little bit of context, I have spent over a year working on healing the masculine side of things. And there was a time last year when I had done enough for the time being and I needed to switch, and I healed more of the feminine, the mother's side of the lineage, which I'm nowhere near finished. And this is just a testament to them also nowhere near finished healing the father side of the lineage. These are things that you work on. It takes time to unpack them. Even when you get an instant shift through something like Mirror Magic, it's just a piece of the onion. It's just one layer out of a million layers. And honestly, it's more like garlic than it is an onion, because there's these little bulbs of hotbeds of trauma, of storylines that you'll have to peel back around each of those bulbs to find the breakthrough, the big boss mother of all breakthroughs, And that's really the point of Mirror Magic, is that you're stuck, you're in this limited experience because of your perception. And what you need is to shift into perspective. And the only way to do that is through having a breakthrough. If you've ever had a breakthrough, which hopefully you have, if you've ever had a breakthrough, then it just hits you like a lightning strike. And then there's no turning back. Nothing will ever be the same, right? That is what a breakthrough feels like. So if you've had one before, there's different ways to get a breakthrough. But it's very difficult to do one particular thing that will consistently give you a breakthrough. You can know that you need a breakthrough all day long, and it's not gonna come. It's not gonna magically happen necessarily. Mirror Magic is the 5-step way. It's like a little 45-minute session. It's the 5-step way to get this breakthrough from your own subconscious for whatever is actually at the root of keeping you stuck. And if you need to heal the father's lineage, if you got the yes with the priority for the father's lineage, oh God, I don't even know what the trigger is. I think if you comment your favorite season, spring, summer, fall, or winter, then you'll get a message with the link for more information on how to heal the father's lineage. But if you got the priority yes for healing the mother's lineage, this is the receptivity protocol. And now that I'm saying it, I also am not sure, but I think it's number 8, spelled out like the number 8, EIGHT. Also, maybe the number 8 probably works too. So those are the 2 keywords for that. Now, that's how you're going to get to actually the bulb of trauma that you need to break through. If you want something a little bit easier to bite off, and I'll explain in a minute why this this might be you. If you want something that's like a little bit more bite-sized, a little bit, easier to break off, to consume, and to implement into your daily life instead of putting aside 45 minutes every couple of weeks. So if you're a burnout mom with a bunch of toddlers running around, like, Mirror Magic might be a heavy lift in this moment, okay? I have a different method called From Block to Breakthrough. Probably if you comment breakthrough, that's the keyword, and I'll send it to you. If that doesn't work, just comment that it didn't work, or send me a DM and I'll get it to you. But From Block to Breakthrough is a 2-minute method that you do as many times a day as you need to. But a good rule of thumb would be like 3 to 4 times a day. You could do it once a day and it'd be fine. And you can do it for 6 weeks, a year. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It is specifically designed to open up the coherence or reconnect the coherence between the heart and the brain to allow you to have breakthroughs on a regular basis. They're not going to be specific, pinpointed, targeted breakthroughs about your mother's lineage or your father's lineage and how those are, the inherited trauma is playing into your, health, wealth, or relationships or whatever. But it's just going to turn you into like a conducting rod for breakthroughs in general. Both are amazing. I do them both on a regular basis. So From Block to Breakthrough is like kind of the low-hanging fruit. The reason I say that is because Obscure to Iconic, my course that helps you heal the wounding from, your father's lineage that has to do with identity and the fear of being seen and providership wounding, that is one where you have to be at a certain level of awareness and consciousness to even attempt it. People, I will tell you this, it is my most transformative course in terms of like self-healing. It is the course for which I get the best testimonials and the best case studies, but it is also and I'm only talking about 2 people, but my course with the most refund requests from people who bought it and didn't try it and completely self-destructed and crashed out and burned every bridge between us and filed a dispute, lost the dispute, filed a new dispute for a different reason, lost the dispute for a different reason. Because the heart stores self-sabotage like no other organ. It stores self-protection and feeling used and feeling trapped and unlived joy. And that is a combination. If you're not at the right level of consciousness to heal this wound, that combination will make you spin the F out, okay? So again, my most loved and transformative course ever is also the one where I've had the most absolute crash outs from people who never actually attempted to do the work, and yet found every reason in the book why this was some sort of bad decision that they had made that was my fault. So, having said that, if you dare, if you think you are at the level of consciousness where you can actually heal your visibility wounds and learn to actually be yourself and provide for yourself based off of who you truly are, Obscure to Iconic will change your life. It'll change your life instantly. And that's if you comment your favorite season. That's what that one is. Spring, summer, fall, or winter. I did not know that it is a North American thing to call fall, and not call it autumn. We also call it autumn, but fall is I guess my default for what I would call the season. So the receptivity protocol, totally different. You'll learn Mirror Magic in either one. but the receptivity protocol is more for like, it's not necessarily just relationships, but it's if you have like this 3-month cliff where everything goes well, and then around the 3 months, sometimes it's the 6 month, but around the 3-month mark, things just crash out, you know? It's not about like you're being expanded too much. I know that's like the most common thing that you're going to hear is like, oh, you didn't have the capacity. You have to grow your capacity. I once had a mentor I paid $20,000 to. And I had no time in my schedule, hardly any childcare. I had just become a single mom. Bubby was like a year old. And she said, watch this Esther Hicks video about having more capacity. I even did a 3-hour group coaching call with her mindset coach. It didn't give me any more capacity, okay? It is, at a certain point, you can't ignore the biology of being a woman. And that's what the receptivity protocol is for. It is not about being able to grow your capacity when you crash out every 3 to 6 months. It's about your actual oxytocin receptors have been conditioned since childhood to be basically when they're flooded with too much oxytocin, when you have a good thing going, there reaches a point around the 3-month mark when the oxytocin receptors not only stop responding, but start disappearing. And then you can no longer feel the oxytocin from it. So we address 3 things in that program. We address the copper to zinc ratio, which allows you to have the proper estrogen to progesterone ratio, which allows you to be able to continue to feel your oxytocin. Once you start feeling good, you'll be able to continue to feel good instead of at the 3 to 6 month mark, crashing out and overcorrecting and self-sabotaging and chasing some sort of new little treat that will give you, a high again. Essentially, we address the mirror magic part of it, so the actual, emotional trauma part of it, and we also address the interference field part of it because this is also commonly seen in people who have an interference field with their oxytocin receptors, or affecting their oxytocin receptors would be a better way to say that. So like the tailbone especially, this innervates a lot of the, the pelvic floor and the uterus and the ovaries. And also anything that directly has provided afferent sensory information to not just the uterus and the ovaries, but also the cervix. Anything like giving birth, C-section, tearing from giving birth, all of that, endometriosis, PCOS, all of these things can cause interference fields within this area that are connected by way of, nerves through the afferent, pathways of the nervous system, that will cause a problem with oxytocin reception. The pituitary is more about oxytocin production, which is not the problem in these women. The problem is reception. And when I say these women, it's going to be probably 90% of the women watching this. I've done so much more one-on-one work this past year than I did for, the year or two before that. And every single woman I talk to has this going on. So we also address that. So we address like the physiological, the emotional, like all aspects of this issue in the receptivity protocol. It's very comprehensive in that way because it's more of a physiological emotional problem than the fear of being seen is. The fear of being seen doesn't lean that physical, if that makes sense. So that's that. I'm making my pizza in the oven. I don't know if y'all heard it ding a while ago, but I can't set the timer while I'm live because I do the timer on my phone. So hope that was interesting. Next time, let me know in the comments, do you want to hear about how you can actually change your genes, not just your epigenetics, but your actual DNA with light and magnets? Because if you do, I will bring the research to back it up and share specific examples of not only like the therapies that do that, but the conditions that they've helped to actually reverse. Okay, I am grateful to be in your orbit.